Hello everyone, welcome to the Bowtie Breakdown. I'm Garry Morin The BowTieGuy. Today I am in Cranston, Rhode Island at PRMI Residential Mortgage with my friend Steve Hawes. Steve, thanks for sitting down with us today.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me again.
No problem. So today, Steve and I want to talk about what a closing disclosure is and why it's important. So Steve, what exactly is a closing disclosure?
So a closing disclosure is a form that we send to you, or any bank's going to send to you. By law, you have to get this within 3 days of your closing.
Okay.
Okay? And really all it is, it's your loan estimate, but it's really finalized.
Okay.
So when we first send you the loan package, we're going to send you, everything that we are believing that's going to be charged to you.
So there's a closing disclosure that goes out in the beginning, and then one that comes out in the end.
Yeah, at the beginning, it's not called a closing disclosure. It's called a loan estimate.
Okay.
So what we have to do is when you're going to be buying a home, we got to tell you an idea of what we think you're going to be charged.
Strictly an estimate.
Closing costs.
Yep.
So when you buy a house, remember you're going to have 4 out-of-pocket expenses.
Yep.
Whether you've bought a home before or you haven't, everybody has these 4 out-of-pocket expenses: down payment, inspection, appraisal, and closing costs.
Yep.
Okay? Now, closing costs are a bunch of different things that get grouped up into one final number.
Okay.
Right? Now, that loan estimate or that closing disclosure breaks all that down.
Oh,
So you
line
have
by line.
Line by line. So when you're buying a house, you have lender fees.
Yep.
Or bank fees.
Yep.
Okay? And then you have attorney fees. You have state fees. No matter what state you're buying
Yep.
in, they're going to charge you, whether it's recording. Some states actually charge you a tax.
Oh, wow. Yep.
A transfer tax.
Yep. Rhode Island has a transfer tax.
You pay that when you sell a house, but in some states you also pay it when you buy a house.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
New York, Florida, you pay for it when you buy the house.
Interesting.
As well. Yep. But we're going to break all that down. Also, your escrows.
Yep.
Okay. So that's going to be on your closing disclosure.
Okay.
And
that way there's no surprises, essentially, right?
Exactly.
Nothing is kept secret.
So your closing disclosure comes to you 3 days before closing, and it's going to have everything broken down. It's going to have your name, what type of loan you're getting, your interest rate, your APR. It's breaking down all your final costs.
Yep. We'll have your monthly payment on there.
Has your monthly payment. Has your monthly payment just principal and interest?
Yep.
And then has your monthly payment with principal and interest and your taxes and
So
insurance.
there's literally no secrets.
There is no secrets. Everything gets broken down. Now, what might not be on your closing disclosure are those final prorations.
Yep.
Okay? The last minute, so when you buy a house, you are responsible for the taxes from the day you buy the house moving forward. So in Rhode Island, you pay taxes in arrears.
Which means behind.
Behind. So
Yeah.
in most cities and towns in Rhode Island, you're paying them backwards.
Yep.
So you typically get money back from the seller for their portion of the taxes.
Yep.
Or if you have
Vice
oil
versa. Yep.
or propane, if there's any oil or propane in those tanks, what's going to happen is the listing agent or you,
Yep.
you're going to get a reading saying there's this much oil in there and this is how much oil is. So you'll either the seller or the buyer will be paying
Yep.
for the portion
Essentially
of
a credit.
a credit.
Yep.
And that goes on typically at the very end.
Okay.
It's not always on the closing disclosure.
It also has to do with how fast the realtor and client get that document over, too.
Correct, correct. But your closing disclosure is going to be very, very, very close to the amount of money that you're going to need for closing.
Yeah.
Or the buyer's going to need for closing.
So on that closing disclosure, there's a term that I just want to kind of call out and talk about, because there are other mortgage companies out there that just send that document and don't explain anything. What does cash to close mean?
That means the amount of money that you're going to need for closing.
Very simply, right?
So, yep. So what we do, and this also does this, what I typically do when I get a closing disclosure is I'm going to let the client know, hey, closing disclosure is on its way.
Yep.
I'm also going to send it to them, and then I'm also going to review it with them.
Awesome. That was a question I was going to ask.
In person, over the phone, through email. I also send it through email, and I kind of break things down for them as well. But your cash to close is the actual amount or the check that you're going to need
Yep.
for closing. So now
That's what I was getting at and why I asked the question, because a lot of times people get confused. They either don't know what that term means or they think they have to bring cash to the table.
Yep. So a lot of people sometimes will get confused for the closing costs and the cash to close.
Yes.
So the cash to close is the amount that you're going to need at closing. It already takes into account if you put any money down at earnest money deposit.
Your deposit and all
so
that.
They're already taking that. Now, you can do one of two things. You can wire the money to your attorney, or you can take a bank check.
Yep.
It has to be a bank check.
Not a personal check.
No personal checks, has to be certified funds. If you do wire the money, this is what I suggest everybody does, is you call the attorney and you get their wiring instructions. And once you have that, no matter if anybody calls you or texts you or emails you saying, hey, we're changing the wiring instructions, you do not do that, because there are a lot of fraudsters out there that try to pay attention to who's buying houses, and it's happened before.
Oh, wow. So
there
good
is
to know.
fraud. So if you are wiring the money, just make sure you talk to the attorney or the attorney secretary directly.
Direct, yes.
Get that wiring instructions, and then nothing changes it from there on out.
Do not take into account any text messages.
No emails, no text
Yes.
messages. You are not changing that wiring instructions, because I've seen people lose money, unfortunately.
And it's crazy the scams that are out there. So very important. Anything else that's important on a closing disclosure that we need to point out?
We just need to review it.
All right.
Everybody up.
Reviewing it and knowing what you need to bring to the table before you get there is definitely important. So Steve, thanks for your time today. That was another Bowtie Breakdown. I'm Garry Morin, Steve Hawes from Primary Residential Mortgage.
Thanks guys.